So this lab focuses on control structures, and we will start with the if-else statements. The if statement begins with the if keyword and ends with the colon, like the for loop, which ended with a colon, and then you indent. So again, remember, you need to remember two things: the colon to end the first line of the control structure, and then the tab for the indentation. And that will mean this line or this Python command will be executed if this condition evaluates to true. So you have the if keyword, a space, the condition, here it's b greater than a, you end it with a colon, and then you indent, and this line will only be executed if b is greater than a. Otherwise, we have else, and again, very important, if you remove this colon here, the code does not work, and I can run it so you see what the error is: invalid syntax, and it puts that caret right next to else because it is expecting something at that point, and what it's expecting is precisely this column. So if b is greater than a, it prints this, otherwise it prints this. How about this? Well, this is not indented, right? So it is not part of this if-else statement. So this would be executed no matter what. And here, a is 10, b is 12. So is 12 greater than 10, right? B is 12, a is 10. And the answer is yes. So it prints b is greater than a. And then it prints I'm here, because after evaluating this, it jumps here. And I hope you realize that if b is greater than a, it's not going to print this, right? If b is less than a or equal to a, it wouldn't print this. It will print this instead. So that's how you provide conditionality in code. If you want some part of the code to run under certain conditions, then you can use if and if-else statements. So again, use tab for indentation. Always remember to end with colon. So what if you don't indent? So this is the proper way to write the code, right? What if you don't indent? Then this line will be executed no matter what. Actually, this will give you an error because there is no body to this if condition. So it expected an indented block. So there is no body to the if conditionality. And then you already realize that you can have just an if statement without an else statement, and then you can have if else statement. If you have just an if statement, yeah, then it executes this, right? If this condition is true, otherwise it does nothing. So you don't have to have an else statement within an if statement. So again, this is the conditionality that we will test. And you can put it in parentheses, you can leave it as so, and if it's true, then the indented body of code will be executed. There's also something called elif, which can be used together with an if statement, and it's else if. It's just a short form for else if. So elif is saying, if this condition is true, do this. Else, if another condition is true, then it does this. So it's different from the else, right? The else didn't have another condition. Let's go back there so you can see. If b is greater than a, otherwise do this. With else if, you will need to have a condition, whereas with else, you don't need to have a condition. So this is a case where we have the if and the else if. So only if a is equal to b, that's when it's going to print this. And then you can use the elif together with the else if, and else will catch any other condition. So what I mean by that is, here we test if b is greater than a, else if a equals b, so we can catch when they are equal. Else, then you print a is greater than b, right? And actually this is wrong, right? Because if it's greater, that's when you print it. So this should be less than. So you can have multiple elif statements testing for different conditions, and at the very end you have the else to catch the condition where all the other tests, like so, all the other conditions evaluate to false. So at the end of the day, it's going to execute only one out of all of these indented body of codes. You can have else without the elif, like we showed before, right? B is greater than A, print this, else, print this. If you only have one statement to execute, you can put it on one line, like so. So if all you had was this, for instance, then these two lines can be put on one line. And the structure is you have your if, just like before, you have your condition, and then what you want to evaluate if true. So all we have done is to move this guy to the same line with this, and you're done. And it gets you exactly the same results. So if B is greater than A, it will print that B is greater than A, but it isn't, so nothing happens. So it doesn't print anything, right? So if I change this temporarily to 0, and then you run it, then it prints something because 10 is greater than 0. Otherwise, nothing happens. So that's how you can combine this and put it on one line. If condition colon, always remember the colon, and then instead of indenting and going to a new line, you can print it out on one line. If you have only one statement to execute, one for if and the other for else, you can put it all on the same line. So this code was originally this, right? We had if and else. So you can still combine this else with this and put them all on one line as shown here. So the syntax is a little different, right? So the important thing is the if else condition in the middle. So you have the if, you have the condition which you are testing for, and then you have else. So if A is greater than B, do what's on the left of those statements, right? What's on the left of this selected code is print A. So if A is greater than B, it will print A. Else, do what's on the right, which is print B. So that's how to think about it, the syntax. If condition else, and then if it's true, you put the condition to be evaluated on the left, otherwise put it on the right, and it will evaluate that. And so when you run it, A is greater than B. A is 10, it isn't greater than B. So this will evaluate to false, and that will print B. And that's why you see B here. If you change it and this becomes smaller than that, so A is now greater than B, and it will print A. Easy enough, right? You can also have multiple else statements on the same line. So we could do if, else, else, right? This is basically nested if else statements, and I will talk about that in the next video recording.